Hello, welcome. I'm El Tyrannos, creator of Community Flavor Pack, and today I'm going to record and share with you my first tutorial for Crusader Kings III. So it's not going to be a tutorial about 3D modeling, but about importing an asset into the game. And for today we are going to use this new model I did in the previous days, which is the Iron Crown of Lombardy. So several steps here. We're going to study how the Substance Painter export works, how to set up the DDS files to convert from TGA to DDS. Then we're going to work in Blender, review how to make the config the strings and the asset file, and then we'll enjoy the result in game. So let's start right away. It should be a quite quick tutorial if I'm efficient. Let's go. This is the model. Say you bought it from a website, or 3D artists from your team provided you with a model. So the model is done, and I'm just going to export it now in game. So for going from this step, I chose a crown because it's easy to import. You don't have to do any waiting. So it's going to be very straightforward, and we'll develop the concepts further in next videos. So first, I'm giving a name to my texture list here. Press Ctrl-Shift-E to export, and I'm going to select my output template to CK3 portrait attachment, and there's no alpha, so this one. You can find this export parameter in alcoholic topic on Paradox forums. I will link it in the description, but otherwise you can make your own with this setup here. Texture set _ diffuse normal properties, RGB for the diffuse, RGBA with the various value, so you can just pause the video and reproduce this setup in Substance, and otherwise download and install the presets from Alcoholic, which I'm using right there. I'm setting up to Targa, and the size you will want in game is 1K. For quality purpose, I'm going to export this texture set in its original size, which is 4K, and I will downgrade it in Photoshop because Photoshop does it much better than Substance quality wise. So I'm exporting my textures in my Community Flavor Pack setup. So in GFX models portrait attachment male 8 years secular Latin because it's Italian, and I'm using the culture names from Paradox, and my file folder CFP Iron Crown of Lombardy 01. So I copying this, setting it here. Well, if you already know Substance Painter, you're not learning anything here. It's going to come. Let's export. So it's 4K. It's going to take a little bit of time, and we will right away move to the DDS conversion. So that's it pretty much for Substance. Of course, if you have done all the previous work, so we are here with our Targa files. Let's open them here in Photoshop. So you will see the diffuse here has no alpha, so we want to work here in the layers. So sorry, my Photoshop is in French, but I will convert. I have 3 layers, red, green, blue. Nothing required here, but to resize this to 1K here. Yeah, let's go. So I'm going to check for bicubic adapted to reduction. Guess that's pretty much the same in English. For the normal maps, you notice that you have no blue layer actually, and one on the alpha. And I'm going to reduce it as well. You could do this with a script to go faster, and we're here with the property 1K reduction. Okay, now to export this to DDS, it's very simple. you will notice that the properties and normals have alpha layers. So to go a little bit in the details, in the properties, the most important, you have the metalness on the blue layer, green and red are black. It's specific to the shader, which is portrait attachment. It's going to be something else for air. It's going to be something else if you have alpha. It's a bit different, and it's going to be way different if you're going to for map assets or like, I don't know, ships, buildings to display on the strategical map. But here it's specific, and it's set up in alcoholic layers, so you don't have anything to do. It's straightforward from PBR, from substance to this format. You don't have anything to do. Basically in Photoshop you can do then further tweaking if you need to, but yeah, that's very straightforward. That's very pleasant here. So to save, Ctrl+Shift+S, I'm going to choose DDS, export, and here I'm going to keep the MIP maps. So the MIP maps, can I preview them here? I should be able. Okay, MIP maps is the reduction here. It's pre-computed and saved into the texture, and based on the distance of the camera in the engine, you are going to display whether one image or the other. Is going to save your your graphic card memory. So for this, I'm going to check DXT3 explicit alpha because I want to keep the alpha layer here, which is important. I'm saving, and I'm doing the same here with the properties, DXT3. And for the diffuse, I'm going to check DXT1. It's going to save half the size of the file because there's no alpha, so I don't need any. If you have alpha, of course, you want to keep your alpha layer, so DXT3, and check the export in substance to portrait alpha. So you see I'm down to 3 megabytes for a file. So that's it for the DDS, very simple. You can generate, if you don't have a substance file, if you bought the model or the artist provided only the PBR renders, so the textures, you can combine them yourself in Photoshop. So metalness, roughness for the properties, and on the normal it's red layer, and then you have the green layer is here, the blue is black, and the alpha is the green, let me not say any bullshit. I think the blue is moved to the alpha. Yeah, I think that's it. It's just the rendering of the engine that is specific. It's not the same everywhere. You might want to double check this because as I'm doing this on the fly, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, pretty much there's a little modification in the normal map organization. It might be the blue one that is put to green, or the blue one to alpha or something. There's a little adjustment to do. Nothing major. And the diffuse, there's nothing to do. It's the albedo straight. You notice that there is no ambient occlusion. This is computed by the engine. But you can of course include it in the albedo. It's always some nice giving some nice contrast. Now in Blender I have my model here, which is low poly. For render purposes I set it to 10K, but this is something I can adjust here, whatever. Of course you'd never want to include a high poly model that is above, that is in hundreds, several 100,000 or million points. This is obvious. Like for example here my high poly is here very dense. So yeah, you want to work with this. You're going to need here the Paradox Blender tool that you can find, and I'm not even up to date. You can find it on GitHub. It's made by Ross G, and it's named IOPDX Mesh add-on and you install it in Blender. I will also put the link in the description for this one. And you're going to load here from Paradox files the male head.mesh, which is this. Actually, I'm going to reload it because I need the rigging here. So it's going to import the head and the points here, which are the skeleton, which is the skeleton for the animation. I'm making a backup of my low poly because I used it for baking. I have a plane 03, plane 03, and you're rendered here. Next step, you want to import still from Paradox. You can import any mesh from the base game. That's something interesting for education process. And here I'm going to import this vanilla circlet, Duke circlet, hiding this, and I'm going to simply use it as a reference to place my own crone. So because you know the crones are making the haircut change, and you don't want your crone to collide with the character's hair, so you want to place it properly so it matches with the base model very simply like this. Of course, I myself used it as a sample to give my my crone the base, the proper curve, so it matches the head model. So here we are. I can delete this, press Ctrl A to apply rotation and scale, and actually all transforms, and it's there. I reverted the normals. Okay, so that's it. It's placed. It's pretty much the final position we want. Next step, if you look at the if you look at here, you have the armature, okay, and you have one interesting bone which is in at mid BNH skull. So I'm going to paste the name from this. You can write it yourself. You don't have to go up to there to make it. I'm going to create here in vertex group tab a vertex group. Then I'm going in edit mode, select everything and assign it to this vertex group. This is the weighting that I'm using for crones and helmets. Paradox is not using this. Paradox is using are actually weighting their crones, so it means they have the animation from, I don't know, the eyebrow is bent to the crone. What happens is that the weighting will animate your model if you are not familiar with it. So if I'm if my character is moving the eyes and the eyebrows, and the eyebrows are assigned to my vertex points, it's going to bend my model. And if you look at, I will show you once I'm in game, but if you look at the Paradox models, the crones that are supposed to be rigid, made of metal, are bending to follow the character's animations. So this is a choice that you have to make, whether you use only BNH skull bone, or you weight it properly, but this is not going to be covered in this tutorial. I will make another one specifically about weighting and blend shapes, and I'm not going to explain it further, but I will do a tutorial about it. The key is you have to decide the limitation of my system is that if your character has a very large head, because you use the ruler designer, or because the genetics made that he has a large head, it might cause some like air collision. Or if you have a full face helmet, you might see the ears stick out, but your mesh is not going to deform after facial animation. So it's an artistical choice you have to make, pretty much. But yeah, it's much for this tutorial I'm using this. It's much simpler. You don't have to worry more about it. So vertex group BNH scale to my entire mesh here. Next step, I want to go to this little wrench here, add a modifier, armature, fuck it, object, and in object I'm selecting IO PDX rig. It's basically this. It's going to bind the mesh to the rigging and enable the animations for it. This is mandatory if you want to have a model that is animated. Otherwise, your model is going to float in this position, and when your character is going to turn its head, the head is going to collide with the crown that will not move. So vertex groups, and the armature modifier. Last step, you are going back to this. In setup, you choose Crusader Kings III, and for now I'll come back to it in a very small time. Let's make just a material. Let's name it like this. You'll see this is not final. Don't do it. If you're doing it, you will have to skip to the next part of the video in a few minutes. I'm selecting portrait attachment. Press OK, and then here in material I can delete what was assigned previously, and here select PDX material. Just this, okay? This allows you to render your crown with the PDX render. Press Shift F3 and you're going to be there. I have this. This is not mandatory, you don't have to do it. It's just if you want to have a preview and check that you are not missing anything. The first one is the diffuse, the second one is the property, and the bottom one is for normal. And I'm going back to with Shift F5 and I can there preview my crown in the CK3 rendering. It's not accurate, it's going to be different in game, but it allows you to pretty much check it in Blender if you don't have Substance Painter. It's a good intermediate step, but it's not required. Let's now move to the asset file. This is where it gets more into the engine and less usual 3D artist stuff. Well, let's just not bother. We're going to copy paste any file, asset file from one you already have, one from the vanilla game, whatever. Okay, there is no prerequisite. It's just a text file. Specificity, mail, headgear. So here, secular. This folder, well, it's not Western anymore. It's Latin, and it's CFP underscore I call 0. And you can see that it's actually the name of the model, it's name of the asset, it's the name of the path with underscore instead of dashes. I'm opening it with Notepad++, language C. I have to fix this one day. I'm going to, this is the one you opened from base game. It's a very simple one. There is no model for the fat shape, for the muscular body, for anything. It's just very raw, and we are not going further today. It will come later. I will replace here to have my file is the .mesh. The name, you want to have the same thing with underscore mesh. Here again with shape at the end, and I will explain to you in a very small time. Here with this is the same with underscore entity, and the same with underscore mesh. So pretty much the mesh is going to, PDX mesh is going to be the 3D part, the model. It's going to influence on the model. The entity part is going to be for the game to read your parameters. It's calling for the PDX mesh, which is defined here. It's the name. If you set another name from another asset file, it's going to call another PDX mesh with another file and other settings. The name is the name of the entity that is called in another file. Let's close all this, it's useless. Here you have the texture. The name isn't important, you can set up whatever you want. So I'm just going to change this to Nicole. It's important to respect the casing. So you can see that my DDS files are uppercase, which is wrong. I want to be everything lowercase as in the file. If you don't respect the matching, the naming, it's going to break your, you're going to have an error message in the log. So I'm mass renaming it to lowercase. Here we are. So I call for the texture, I call for the shader, portrait attachment. It can be portrait attachment alpha, it can be portrait attachment pattern, pattern alpha, etc. You have several available, but that's the basic one. We are doing very basic today. And that's it for the asset. The file is the name of the file, the .mesh, which is not here yet. The PDX, this is the name of your PDX mesh. This is the call of your PDX mesh. This is the name of the entity here. Very simple. And that's it. We'll go further in other tutorials. Now we need to edit a few files. We need to go in the root here. Go in common. Let's not start here. Let's stay in GFX. Let's go in portraits, access, not this one, accessories. Here you are going to create a file for your mod. So here it's CFP underscore, blah, blah, blah. But you could name it my awesome new headgear. Edit it with Notepad++. If you create a new file, don't forget encoding in encoding to set it to UTF-8 boom. It's the same here. This one is UTF. Some files require UTF-8 boom. Usually you will have an error in the, or a warning in the log. How does this work? Very simply. These are the tags that are in the game. So you see, this is for me, I created command. So crown shape to the air, bowl shape to the air, makes the bird now male hairstyle, female hairstyle, blah, 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 blah. And you're just going to create here an entity. I mean, a call for an entity. This is the accessory. You have a tag that set the air. You have a call for the entity. Required tags mean if I wish, for example, I don't have any here. It's more used for air actually, but I could have curly air, for example. I don't know what the name is in vanilla, and it requires this to be applied to your character to show the model. Shared pose entity is head. It means it's going to be bound to the head animations, and entity is calling for this here. So I'm going to collapse everything, and I'm doing it at the same time for my mod. So let's add it after Western, Latin. I'm picking any one random, I don't care, the male preferably. Here I'm going to grab the name of the file, replace it, set my tag. It's a cron, so I just need here to have set tags equal cron. Required tags none, shared pose entity add, this is default. Entity, I'm picking the entity name, I set it here. And so to make it more easy to read, like this. So that's it for the entity. And get ready, you are almost done. You have done pretty much 80% of the job here. We are going back here. Back, everything you don't need to edit. We're going to command gen headgear. This is the file. You see it has the same name as the vanilla file, specificity of Crusader Kings. you are here editing the vanilla file. You cannot define a name, a file for your own mod. It has to be editing the vanilla mod, otherwise it will erase this category headgear and replaced by your new file. So all the vanilla definition will be broken. So that's a bit dumb, and it's why all the mods have incompatibilities as soon as they edit the same file. The two mods editing the same file will break. So if you can, if it's possible by if the engine make it possible, you are going to create your own file. If the engine doesn't allow it, you have to edit the game file, and there you run into incompatibilities sometimes with some other mods. Here we're not going to bother because it's not the same work to define a new category in there. So we are just going to use Western, whatever, wherever you want to put your crone. Actually, here I don't care. I don't know yet, honestly. So duplicate with Control D, Control V. I put my asset name, not the entity, just the name, and of course not the name of the PDX mesh, just the name of the model. Here, it's actually this name here is this one, is what you're going to set here. So if you, for whatever reason, you don't want this, where is it? This, if you want this to be blah, 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 you can have it different than this as long as it calls for the entity. This class calls for this entity calls for this mesh is defined here, and it calls for the model. It's linear, it's step after step. Of course, this doesn't help, and the best is to keep it consistent in terms of naming. So when you read at something, it's clear that it calls for this entity that calls this model. Wherever you are, you understand what is the mesh file that is used. So we have it here in the genes, we have it here in the accessories, we have the asset file. We need the localization because otherwise the name is not going to show up. So my game is in French, but could do it in English, and I will do it in English, of course. Here it's the same process. Take any string from the base game, or you can even use my mod as reference. You take any string from the base game and just copy paste it, duplicate it, and there you take the name of your file. You have portrait modifier custom headgear. This is never going to change. It's the base, it's part of the category. So we're just going to edit this. Okay, here you are, and name it Iron Crown of Lombardy, or My Wonderful Crown for yours. Here for the women, I will not cover it in the tutorial, but it's exactly the same process. I could cover it because there is a small specificity. I'm going to paste here, add FE, and paste here. What it means with those little symbols here, it's calling for this class, so the name is the same, you don't have to write it twice. Easy, right? For women, for the female model, you want to have, for easier setup, you will have in model portrait attachment, I have male headgears, secular. If I take any, let's say Western High Nobility 4, it is one of the model from Saffron who works with me on Community Flower Pack. If I go to female, just replace FE here, I come here to my female model. And you see that it has no texture. Why? In the asset, I call for the texture name, and it's actually calling those here. If you have a file named High Nobility 4, in this folder and in another folder you give the same name, it's going to conflict. You need the path is actually not set. It's a design choice from Paradox. You don't have a proper path here, like blah 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 blah, etc. So it's the file name, and every file name must be unique. So you don't have to redefine it, just define here, add female, female instead of male, female instead of male, female, female instead of male, and in the head here, I would just duplicate it and add female here and female here, and that's it. So I have my, I'm not going to do the asset right now, but you get the ID. I have my accessory. I have my female chain here calling for the entity. I have my string that I'm going to duplicate in every language and translate. And I have my two asset files that call for the same texture and the class, etc. Last step, everything is done in terms of setup. We are back to the model. We have to be careful about two things before you export. You have, let's put it there, this here. If I'm going to my asset file, you have the name, the file. You want to take the name, here, not this, not underscore mesh, but the name of your entity, okay? The name of, it's complicated, not the name of the entity, but this one, third line. I'm going to name my object like this. And very important, I'm going to grab this, the shape, and I'm going to name this as a shape. This is the, what is the name again? It's the, it has a specific name, but the green triangle. It is, you call it shape, blah, blah, blah. Last step in my material, I want to name it PDX caps lock, caps in caps, mat, lowercase, and the shape name like this. So I have name of the entity, name of the mesh setting in name. Here, if I said blah, 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 I want to have blah, blah, blah here. Okay. That's very important because the asset file is going to read for the mesh file and look for these informations. So you have to be careful about it or it will break your model. And that's it. Very easy. We are done. We are going to export this to mesh. Mesh being the format, save mesh. I go to my icon here. Oh, you see that's the name of the bold error from the last update. I don't want this. I want it to be here, the file name. .mesh. I'm going to tick export mesh, export skeleton, export locators, selected only. This is selected. Otherwise, it's going to export every asset, every object in the mesh, and it's going to break, of course. So I just want this. This is new. This is really given because before it was very annoying without the selected only. Specificity, the merge vertices. If you plan to have blend shapes, so another model if my character is fat, that we will cover in the next video, you want to untick it. If you plan not to have any other model, just one shape for your model, like a clone isn't going to change ever, it's only one mesh file, I can merge the vertices. It's going to just change the size of the file, but you don't want it in blend shapes, but we'll come back to it. And you see, when you are not doing it right, you will have this error. It's perfect. And look, tangent space can only be computed for triangles. So I go in edit mode, select all, Control T, and there I re-export to mesh. So you need your model to be triangulated, not selected, like not in edit mode, but in object mode selected. So with the, like this, save mesh, back here. Ah, come on. Okay. Selected only, merge vertex, export. It takes a little bit of time because my file is, my clone is too big, but I will, it's just, I did not clean up the model as I finished yesterday evening, but basically I'm going to simplify a bit the model. It's just for my final rendering, I needed it to be a bit more detailed than just 500 polygons, 5,000 polygons, so please. I'm just reverting back to squares so I can keep working on it, save my file, and that's it. I'm done. Let's go check my file saved properly here. So you see it has the same name but not the same extension. The textures, everything is here. Let's go. We're almost there. Come on. Here we are. So that's Matilda of Tuscany. Let's just my DLCs are not here because my Paradox account isn't connected. Okay. Duchess Matilda. Okay, there I go in the barbershop, and it should be. I'm a female, I cannot. So I have to check someone else because I've not exported my female character yet. So let's go. Oops. Holy Roman Empire. There. And look for my Iron Crown of Lombardy somewhere. I think I started booted vanilla. I don't have anything from my mod. Nope, I have to restart, my bad. I think Steam did not boot actually, that's why. No, just to be sure, I'm going to boot it with the launcher. Come on. Okay. Sorry for that little delay. Yeah, it was vanilla. So I have my local mod set with full screen barbershop, which I recommend you guys. It's a great mod. And community flavor pack. Let's go. This one is the good one. hope it's going to load faster now that it started once. Okay. I lost my... So here, first skill about... Oh, perfect. So let's look for the... It should be after Western, so... where are you? Iron Crown of Lombardy. Zoom it, and here it is. Voila! Of course, you see that it doesn't... It fits perfectly since I used the reference from the vanilla model. So it sits right on the head as I wished. And it follows the head movement. So what I wish to show you is if I use this one is very visible. If not this one, if I go with the it's the name in French already. It's bandeau. Yeah. If you look here, you see that it is. Stop moving you. You see the mesh is changing based on the facial expression. I should be able to find one where it's very bent. Or probably they improved it a little bit. Could be that. Maybe they improved a bit. But if you check sometimes you'll see, or maybe on another character, that the crowns are deformed by the facial animation. So maybe they fixed it because it was very strong previously and I did not pay attention since the 1.2 release. But yeah, their crowns were deformed. So the easiest way is really to set only one vertex group to your model, and this way you're good to go. You are not annoyed by the eyebrows animes that, or the forehead animes that is going to influence your model. So that's it. Let's where was it? Here it is. You see the render is very close to what you were able to see on Substance. It was straightforward from PBR to in-game, and the import process is actually, you must not be scared by the import process of such simple assets. There's literally nothing too difficult about it. It's editing 3 files. It's just you need a few minutes to understand the relationship between the various classes and how it's set up and organized in the to the engine, for the engine to read it. But there's really, literally no challenge to import a clone. It's something different when you're going to work on an entire a full head asset like this, like the male coif, because you see it has to follow the animations of the head and the shoulders, the neck, and so on. But for a helmet or a crown like this, you really have no challenge at all. It's straightforward, and yeah, it takes literally 15 minutes to do it. So I hope you guys enjoyed and that you learned some interesting stuff. I will be back later for more tutorials, especially about weighting, blend shapes, also about the hair, because I want to share some resources with you. I done some, if you have not, if you did not see it, the Community Flavor Pack now has, where are you? There. Noah's beards and haircuts that are, we tried to keep the cartoonish looking of the vanilla assets for standardization, and so we did some research and development, and I have to share some stuff with you about it if you want to have some similar looking final product. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed and you learned interesting stuff. I'll be back soon, hopefully. You can meanwhile follow me on Twitter. You can contact me on the Community Fiber Pack Discord, and you can support our work on Ko-fi or Patreon. And yeah, you're welcome for any question in the comments. Have fun, enjoy the game, enjoy modding it. It's great, even if some compatibility are quite hard to get sometimes, but it's a great platform for modding. So yeah, we hope you enjoy our work, and we hope to see more content in the future from modders. Have fun. Bye bye.